MacArthur Wheeler walked into 2 Pittsburgh banks and robbed them at gunpoint in broad daylight without a mask on. He was easily caught that night and was completely surprised because he thought he couldn't be seen by the cameras. He thought if he rubbed lemon juice on his face that the cameras couldn't see him. He proved this to himself by taking an arm's-length Polaroid shot and missed. He took a picture of the blank wall, and that blank photograph was his proof that he couldn't be seen. A guy named David Dunning read about this and had an epiphany, and he realized that MacArthur was not only too stupid to be a bank robber, he was too stupid to know that he was too stupid to be a bank robber. He called this the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is where your incompetence and ignorance prevents you from seeing your own incompetence and ignorance. And it turns out that the less you know about something, typically the more adamant you are of it. And that got me to thinking about some of the things that we've held throughout history that are just fundamentally false. Things like the earth is flat. The only 4 elements are earth, wind, water, and fire. And that a woman wants to know the truth if she asks if she looks fat. This is not relegated to dumb people, though. The head of the University of Chicago's physics department said in 1894 that all the major discoveries of physics had already been made. So if this happens to dumb people, and this happens to smart people, then I say it happens to everybody in between, including you and me. And if you don't believe me, how many times have you laid out milk and cookies for a bearded fat man to eat in the middle of the night after he breaks into your house? So, what are these blind spots? These are things where you know you're right, where you are absolutely passionate that you have the right answer. If you've ever heard anybody say, I don't care what you tell me, I'm not going to change my mind. That's what I'm talking about. And that type of thinking stops all further discourse. It stops you from looking for a better answer. And it makes you look like the talking heads you see on TV, like Bill O'Reilly and Michael Moore, who just preach hate and anger. And so, why do we have these? Why do we hold on to this? And I think it's because most of the beliefs we have just led us to be just right enough not to be dead. Right? We're mostly right, but very wrong in a lot of respects. And it's also, if you apply Darwin's theory to ideas, it means that the ideas that survive are strong and compelling, even if they're not really right. And, excuse me, and it's also because being passionately and adamantly wrong about something will get more done than being passively right. The person who stands up and shouts, follow me, will get an angry mob to follow them off a cliff. But the person who whispers, that might not be a good idea, gets ignored. And so what can you do? And so, what can you do? Well, question yourself. Question your most fundamental beliefs. And question authority. And question people who told you that they knew something was going to happen before it did. People who tell you they knew about the stock market crash. They knew about the housing collapse. Are full of it. Ask them what they did about it. Ask if they put their money where their mouth was. Because these blind spots help you over-exaggerate what you thought you knew. Forget about what you didn't know. And give you the false impression that you can do this again. And remember what Yogi Berra says. It's hard to make predictions, especially about the future. So what can you do about this? Well, you can admit you got a problem, right? That's the first step. Even if you don't think you do. And hell, especially if you don't think you do. Because that's when you probably have wrong ideas. And remember the Dunning-Kruger effect every time that you are adamantly, passionately sure that you know you are right. And finally, be willing to back off your stance a little bit, because you might just find out that you're not so right. So why should you do this? And I say you should do it because there's a good chance that you could actually be wrong. Right? Anytime that you're having a passionate disagreement with somebody, there's a 50-50 shot that you're the one who's not right. And because yelling about it never convinces anybody. You never win an argument by being louder than the other person. And because you might just find that you get along with more people and find that you have some common ground and actually get along and learn something. And so I say we should all be actively looking for our blind spots, our own flat earth theories, the things that people 200 years from now are going to look back at us and laugh at the same way that we look back and laugh at doctors who used to bleed their patients and use leeches to try to equalize their humors and ended up killing more people than they ever saved. And so I say we need to admit that we don't know nearly as much as we think we do and recognize our shortcomings, and that will lead to a better and more enlightened future for all of us. And this is something that I fundamentally believe. But you know what? I could be wrong.